Hello, Toby. It's such an honor to have you as a guest on the High Performance Garden community. Thanks for agreeing to do this interview exploring the world of seeds.
Hi, it's really great to be here with the Living Farm and to be here on the interview. My name is Toby Cain. I'm the Education Coordinator at Seed Savers Exchange, which is a nonprofit in Decorah, Iowa.
The Seed Savers, a nonprofit, is dedicated to saving and sharing seeds for generations to come. So why are seeds so important?
Well, that's a great question, and the answer to it is why we exist. So seeds are part of our cultural heritage. They're part of our biological and botanical heritage and our culinary heritage. And the world would definitely look a lot different today if society had not invented organized agriculture. So about 10,000 years ago, people started saving and sharing seeds and developing their own varieties of plants, and that caused societies to become more sedentary. It allowed populations to grow, and it created the world today as we know it. Today, seeds are so important because they really hold the stories that connect us to our past, and they hold a lot of diversity.
Tell me how Seed Savers Exchange was started.
Sure. So back in the 1970s, Seed Savers Exchange was started by a young couple. Their names were Diane and Kent, and Diane grew up in northeast Iowa in a town called Festina. And like a lot of other families in the Midwest, Diane's family was from Germany. And she was in her early 20s, and she had met this gentleman, Kent, and they were about to get married, and they wanted to move out west. And Diane, before she left to marry Kent, she was talking to her family and talking specifically to her grandparents. And she had these wonderful memories of visiting her grandparents in her town of Festina and sitting on their porch. And Diane's grandfather covered their porch with these morning glory flowers. They were these really nice vining flowers whose purple blossoms opened in the morning and then closed after midday. And they created this wonderful shade around the porch, and Diane just has a lot of memories playing there with her grandfather. And she asked her grandfather for some seeds for that morning glory so that she could remember him and remember her childhood home and her family. And when he gave her the seeds, he also told her a story. He said, Diane, these seeds were brought over from Germany by my father when he immigrated from Bavaria, and they were grown by our family over there. And Diane had never heard this story before, and immediately she felt this connection to people she'd never met in a country that she'd never been to. And she was really, really touched by this donation of seeds from her grandfather and from the story that was attached to it. And he also gave her a variety of tomato that we now call German pink tomato that his father grew in Germany as well. And so Diane and Kent got married, and they moved to Montana for a while, and then they moved to Missouri and started a family. But shortly after they got married, Diane's grandfather passed away. He was in his late 80s, so she was obviously upset about his loss, but she was also worried and sad about the potential loss of these seeds that had been in her family for so long. And it had been a while since she'd been back home to Iowa, and she wondered if anybody there was still growing this morning glory or this tomato now that her grandfather had passed. And she realized that that must be a pretty common story for folks around the United States. And so she and Kent started writing letters to other people around the country asking if they had similar stories and if they would like to save and share seeds kind of in a group, in a club. And they wrote to a bunch of Back to the Land magazines, including Westward Ho and most importantly, Mother Earth News magazine. And back then, Mother Earth News, just as it is today, was a really great source of information for people wanting to start their own farmsteads or expand upon gardens and just learn more about homesteading in general. So Diane and Kent wrote this really sweet letter to the editor, and it said, "Dear Mother, hi, we're Kent and Diane Otwhaley, and we live in Missouri, and we have received these wonderful morning glory seeds that have a great history from Diane's family. We also have these tomatoes from her grandfather, and we'd like to share them with people. So if you have any seeds that you would like to share with us, please let us know. And if you'd like to grow this morning glory and to grow this tomato, please let us know. And we'll start kind of a small organization. We'll start a small exchange of seeds." And so that was just a letter that they published, and they sent it off into the void and hoped that people responded. And that first year, only about 30 people got back to Kent and Diane from that letter. And I guess Diane has told me, and she wrote in her book, that she was actually kind of disappointed that only 30 people got back to her. But that first year, 30 people wrote back and said, Diane, Kent, my name is Toby, and I have this squash seed from my father's family, or, my name is Kristen, and I have this wonderful apple that's been in my family for multiple generations. We have all kinds of apple trees of the same variety. I'd like to share them with you. And so Kent and Diane published this nice little 6-page brochure that they called the True Seed Exchange, and it just listed everybody's phone number and their address and little biographies about them and then what seeds they had to offer. It was like this really nice little phone book of plant collectors and just ordinary gardeners who wanted to share seeds with each other. And so, yeah, that got started in 1975. And year after year, more people heard about the seed exchange, as they started calling it. They heard about the seed exchange, and they read about Diane and Kent's story, and they started participating. So much more than 30 people started exchanging seeds with each other, and the book, that little yearbook is what we call it now, that yearbook, that list of members and seeds, got bigger and bigger every year. And Kent and Diane were raising a family. They had 5 children, and Kent had a full-time job, and Diane was so busy at home, and they were just doing the seed exchange on the side, just because it was something that they were passionate about. But people started recognizing that Kent and Diane really cared about seeds and really cared about this genetic and cultural preservation, and so they started sending Kent and Diane seeds of their own. They said, I don't have time to participate in this exchange, but I'm going to send you my family heirloom squash. Can you please keep it safe for me? Or nobody in my family wants to continue gardening, and I'm so old and I can't do it anymore. Can you please keep this bean safe for me? And Diane has told the story many times that her house just started to fill up with seeds, and they filled her kitchen, and I've seen pictures of just like packages and envelopes and boxes full of seeds, and they dealt with this for a while. And just still had this side project running out of their house. But then one day in the late 1970s, or maybe early 1980s, this gentleman named John Withey contacted them with a really significant donation. And John had spent his whole life, about 30 years of his whole life, collecting beans and their stories from the Northeast. And John had amassed a collection of over 1,100 different kinds of beans. And he sent his entire collection to the Otwayleys. And that is when they realized the enormity of this project that they had started and the need for them to make this their full-time jobs. They thought, wow, so many people have placed an enormous amount of trust in us, and we have this wonderful treasure of plants and seeds, and we really need to make this our work. And, seeds are a really unusual collection to have. They're not like coins. They're not like stamps. I collect stamps. Other people collect trains, like little toy trains and cars and things like that. Those are all collections that I can keep in a box and just get out when I want to show them to people or arrange them. But seeds are a lot different. They are living things, and they want to be planted, and they want to grow and regenerate. So it was only a little time after John Withey made his incredible donation of bean varieties that Kent and Diane started looking for land to plant a farm and really start Seed Savers Exchange as it is today. So in the mid-1980s, they moved back to Iowa with the help of some really generous friends. They bought a 240-acre piece of property here in Decorah, and they started farming. And that first year, I think they grew about 700 varieties of plants, and they've continued to grow thousands and thousands over the years. And it just started with Kent and Diane and a few volunteers, and now we have a staff of over 60 people. We have multiple buildings here on the farm, and we've expanded to 890 acres here at Heritage Farm in Decorah. And so over the last 30 years, we've really, really grown our organization. We have about 13,000 members all over the country who participate in the seed exchange. They're all preserving varieties or supporting us to help us preserve varieties. And we have a seed catalog that supports our nonprofit work. and we keep hosting this yearly exchange. We print a book every year called the Yearbook, where those 30 people who started out can save and share seeds with each other. And we have a very large collection of seeds. So we have about, between 20 and 25,000 different seeds that people have sent us over the years, 20 to 25,000 different varieties that people have sent. And that's the largest non-governmental seed bank in the United States.
Well, that's a great story. I get the yearbook, and it is impressive. And I just did an estimate one year of how many different tomato seeds were in there. There's about 3,800 varieties of tomatoes in there.
Yeah, it's really phenomenal, the number of plants that folks save and cook and eat with and trade among each other. Like you said, the variety of tomatoes in the yearbook is bordering on 4,000, and there are many thousands of different beans and hundreds of different kinds of corn and legumes of other sorts and lots of flowers. It's just an amazing display of diversity, and it takes a lot of work by thousands of people to put that together every year.
Can you still get the original Morning Glory from Diana's grandfather?
Yeah, we still have that Morning Glory on the farm. Lots of people offer it to each other in the exchange. It's one of our biggest sellers in our seed catalog, and it grows here at Heritage Farm every year. It's a very prolific plant. It self-seeds, and the Morning Glory flowers climb up the old Amish barn that's here on the farm. So they're a big highlight of our visitor center and our display gardens.
That's great. It just brings it full circle, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So can you explain the difference between a hybrid, an open pollinated, and a GMO seed?
So let's say you have the Grandpa Ott's Morning Glory flower, and that flower has been grown by Diane Ott Whaley's family for a long time. And the flower has, its pollination happens in an open environment. It's called open pollinated. Nothing is stopping the pollen from a different variety of Morning Glory from intermingling with Grandpa Ott's Morning Glory. We say the term open pollinated when pollination occurs by an insect, a bird, wind, humans, or other natural mechanisms. So there are no restrictions that prevent pollen from traveling between individuals, and open pollinated plants are more genetically diverse. Sometimes pollen from different varieties can get in the mix, and this can cause a greater amount of variation within plant populations. And sometimes that will allow plants to adapt to local growing conditions, and it'll let them adapt to local climates. And as long as pollen isn't shared between different varieties of the same species, then the seed produced will remain true to type year after year. So if you have the German pink tomato and you just make sure that your tomato is not growing next to, say, an Italian beefsteak tomato, if it's within a certain distance away from that Italian beefsteak, that German pink tomato will probably remain true to type. Many plants, such as peas and most beans, are self-pollinating, which means that you don't have to worry about pollination happening between different varieties of the same species. And tomatoes, for the most part, are self-pollinating, but there are other varieties of plants that aren't self-pollinating, and those are the plants that you need to be a little bit more careful about. So here at Seed Savers Exchange, we take a lot of precautions to make sure that we don't have hybridized corn here, which means that we have to hand-pollinate all of our corn. So we put little bags over the tassels and bags over the ears, and we actually have to hand-pollinate all of those varieties. A hybrid hybridization is a controlled method of pollination in which the pollen of two different species or two different varieties is intentionally crossed by humans. So hybridization can occur naturally through random crosses. So if that Italian beefsteak tomato crossed pollen with a German pink tomato, the seeds of that German pink tomato, when you grow them out the next year, would maybe exhibit traits from German pink and from the Italian beefsteak. But most hybrid seeds that are grown today, when we're talking about hybrids, those were intentionally made crosses. And there are some benefits to hybrids, and then there are some drawbacks. And so the first generation of a hybridized plant tends to grow better and produce higher yields than the parent varieties. This is kind of a phenomenon called hybrid vigor. It's just that there's more diversity in that hybrid plant. it's getting like both strengths from the different parents, and it produces a really strong growing and uniform hybrid. But then if you try to save seeds from that hybrid plant, that hybrid starts to become genetically unstable, and the seed really can't be saved. You can't depend on those varieties coming true every year. And so gardeners who choose to plant hybrid varieties must purchase seeds every year. And some hybrid seeds can be stabilized, and you can make it an open pollinated variety by growing and selecting and saving seeds over many years. And some of our members choose to do that. They might find a tomato or a watermelon that they think is so sweet and so nice, and they will try to stabilize that hybrid and make it an open pollinated variety again. But for the most part, hybrids, you just buy the seed one year and it performs pretty well or very well, and then the next year you're going to have to buy seed again. And genetic modification can either, well, people have been genetically modifying seeds for a long time. Since the dawn of agriculture, people have been genetically modifying plants because they might find a wild tomato and then they choose the tomatoes that have the best flavor or have the best color to them. And over time, over many, many, many seasons, humans naturally choose traits that they want. And so we can actually call that in itself genetic modification. But when people talk about GMO crops today, they're usually talking about hybrid crops, and specifically hybrid crops that have a trait that's been added to them either through radiation. Radiation can cause certain genetic mutations in plants that allow them to develop certain characteristics, like, in the case of a lot of corn, these characteristics can include resistance to a certain herbicide. So you can spray an herbicide, it will affect the weeds in that corn patch, but it won't affect the corn. Or it can actually be kind of interspecies modification, where you take certain traits from one variety of plant and insert it into another. And so pretty much, so most genetically modified crops are grown at an enormous scale, and it really only at this point encompasses certain crop types. And the average gardener doesn't really have to worry about accidentally buying any genetically modified crops. They just need to think about whether they want to choose hybrid crops or open pollinated crops for their gardens. That being said, we do have to hand pollinate our squash, and we have to hand pollinate most importantly our corn and our soybeans, so that we don't have any cross-contamination from seeds that are genetically modified that are growing in fields really close to us. We're located here in Iowa, and if pollen were to drift, especially from cornfields, it could hybridize with our open pollinated corn varieties, and then the offspring of those plants here on our property might contain traits from those genetically modified varieties, many of which are patented, and then we could get in trouble. So that's why we have to hand pollinate all of our corn.
Do you feel that the GMO seeds are dangerous?
We at Seed Savers Exchange don't take a stance on genetically modified seeds. We're a nonprofit organization, so we have to remain pretty apolitical. But whenever I'm asked that question, I just turn to this kind of document that we and about 100 other seed companies and seed organizations adhere to, and it's called the Safe Seed Pledge. And if you'd like, I could read it to you, but it kind of represents our perspective on genetic diversity, and we're doing what we believe, and that's keeping a lot of genetic traits and different varieties out in commerce and in people's gardens, because we think that, we think that having a diverse gene pool from many, many different varieties, you mentioned we have 4,000 different tomatoes. We think that all those 4,000 tomatoes have different characteristics that make them valuable. Who knows which of those might be resistant to certain pests? Who knows which of those tomatoes might be really, really fantastic in canning or in future cuisines that folks invent? And who knows which of those tomatoes is going to stand up really well in the face of climate change? So we just do our best to maintain that genetic diversity and adhere to the Safe Seed Pledge. So the Safe Seed Pledge says, agriculture and seeds provide the basis upon which our lives depend. We must protect this foundation as a safe and genetically stable source for future generations. For the benefit of all farmers, gardeners, and consumers who want an alternative, we pledge that you do not knowingly buy, sell, or distribute genetically engineered seeds or plants. The mechanical transfer of genetic material outside of natural reproductive methods and between genera, families, or kingdoms pose great biological risks as well as economic, political, and cultural threats. We feel genetically engineered varieties have been insufficiently tested prior to public release. More research and testing is necessary to further assess the potential risks of genetically engineered seeds. Further, we wish to support agricultural progress that leads to healthier soils, genetically diverse agricultural ecosystems, and ultimately healthier people and communities.
So what kind of seeds do you guys save there? Hybrids, open pollinated, GMOs?
We save a lot of different varieties of seeds, but all of them are open pollinated. We have an accessions policy, and that is a document that kind of guides which varieties we bring into our collection. And the accessions policy has a lot of stipulations, the first of which is that the variety must be open pollinated. Beyond that, we have over 80 crop types that we keep here at Heritage Farm, from azuki bean to sorrel to zinnias. We have, like I said, about 20,000 different varieties here in our collection, and the majority of them are heirloom open pollinated varieties, so seeds that have been passed down in a family or community for more than 20 years, and the majority of those are American heirlooms. We're trying to focus on American heirlooms, and then we also have a lot of old commercial varieties in our collection. So varieties that maybe were once offered in Burpee's catalogs years and years ago, or in any of the other hundreds of small seed catalogs that existed since the 1700s in the United States. But all of them are open pollinated, and we don't allow people to share hybrid seeds in our exchange either. We just want them to share open pollinated seeds with each other.
Nice. You mentioned heritage seed. How is that different from an open pollinated seed?
All of our seeds are open pollinated, but not all of our seeds are heirloom. And the term heirloom is tossed around a lot, but to be honest, it doesn't have a clear definition. Our definition of it is that an heirloom seed is a variety of seed that has been passed down within a family for at least 20 years. That's what our accessions policy says. Some people say that an heirloom is a variety of seed that's been passed down in a family for more than 50 years or that's been around for 100 years, but we define it as an heirloom, as a seed that's been passed down for 20 years. All heirloom seeds are open pollinated, but not all open pollinated seeds are heirlooms.
Okay, good. I was wondering what the distinction was between the two.
Yeah.
So you say you have 27,000 varieties of seeds. So where do you keep them? How do you save them?
So we have about 890 acres here at Heritage Farm, and we have over 30 gardens. But we have over 20,000 varieties in our collection. So how do we save seeds from all of those? It would be mind-boggling to try and grow 20,000 different varieties every year. So kind of like a museum, we have those 20,000 varieties, but we only grow out a certain number a year. A museum like the Natural History Museum has millions of artifacts, of accessions in its collection, but it can only display a certain number of thousands of those varieties, of those accessions in the museum at any one time. And so, like a museum, we have to pick which ones we're going to grow out in the gardens every year. So we have a curator, just like a museum, like an art museum would have a curator, and our curator decides which varieties we grow out, say, in 2016. And his name is Tor Jansen, and he will go through our collection and see which seeds are getting old that need to be regenerated. He'll see which seeds in our collection we don't have a lot of that we need to grow out. He'll see which seeds in our collection don't have a lot of, don't have a lot of description. We will grow those out so that our evaluation team can write notes about them. And we will sometimes grow out seeds if we want to introduce them into our catalog, and so we'll grow those out for increase. So typically, we grow out between 700 and 1,000 different varieties of seeds every year. Some of those we don't save seed from. We'll just evaluate them. But most of them we do save seed from in one way or another, and then we save those in our vault. Here at Seed Savers Exchange, we have a very cold storage unit that is about negative 18 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's where almost all of our seeds are stored. And we also have backup locations for our seed vault. And so we, a couple times a year, send seeds to the United States Department of Agriculture's National Seed Bank in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then once a year, we send a shipment to Svalbard, which is the global seed vault in Svalbard, Norway. So those two seed banks kind of act like safety deposit boxes for us. Only we have access to those seeds, and they are really only a backup in case of an emergency here. If we have a flood, or if a tornado comes through, or if we lose power and our generators fail for multiple days and those seeds are damaged, we can turn to the United States Department of Agriculture Seed Bank and the Svalbard Global Seed Bank to retrieve our seeds.
Oh, that's cool. They're saved
Yeah.
in multiple locations. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a person on staff who's an inventory technician, and it is his job to save all of those seeds in our vault. And so a seed after it's grown, let's say you grow a corn variety, we have a staff who are growing that corn all year, hand-pollinating it, tending to it. They harvest it when it's ready to be harvested, when the seeds are dry. And then we have another team of folks who do an initial processing on that corn. They're shucking the corn, they're taking the kernels away from the husk, and they remove any large debris. And then the seed is germination tested. We want to make sure that that seed is viable. And then the seed is processed one more time just to get out any sort of minute little particles, chaff, or other parts of leaves or the plant. And then the seed is moisture tested. We make sure that it's dry enough to go into storage, and we're looking for moisture content of between 5 and 7% for most seeds, because those seeds are going to be frozen. And if you freeze a seed and it is not dry enough, the free water in the cells of those seeds can actually rupture. It can rupture the cell walls when that water freezes and cause damage to the seed. So a lot of steps have to be taken between the time that we harvest a plant and the time that we save those seeds in our vault. And but if we take all of those steps and we walk through all of those precautionary, if we go through all of those steps, those seeds will last in our vault from anywhere between a couple decades to several hundred years, depending on the variety.
Wow. They can live a long time.
Yeah.
So who can save seeds? Is it legal? Can anybody save seeds, or you have to have a white suit?
Great. Anybody who wants to save seeds can save seeds. It is far easier than you would imagine. It doesn't have to get too technical. As long as you're saving seeds from open pollinated varieties, there's absolutely no problem with it. You cannot save seeds from genetically modified plants because somebody owns the traits that are present in those seeds, and so those seeds are not yours. They belong to somebody else. But for open pollinated plants, anybody can save the seeds from those varieties. And for some crops, like peas, it's as easy as leaving a couple of peas on the vine, waiting for those peas to dry out on the vine, and then storing them for next year. For other crops, like eggplant, you can't harvest an eggplant to eat and also take its seeds out. You have to leave a couple of those eggplants on the vine. They get large, they turn strange colors, and the seeds get really big and crunchy. And same thing with cucumbers. You just have to leave a couple cucumbers on the vine to sacrifice for seed saving. But anybody can save seeds in their backyard, even in their home, if you have seeds and maybe even a tomato in a container.
That's cool. Do you teach people how to save seeds?
Yeah, here at Seed Savers Exchange, we host a variety of classes and workshops throughout the year, starting with a spring garden school and concluding with a fall harvest school and some seed saving schools, all of which are meant to just encourage folks to save seeds and share seeds with each other. And we have a bunch of tutorials on our website and on our YouTube pages, and we'll hopefully have a lot of new seed saving information on our website so that people, even if they're a beginner, can buy a seed or receive a seed from someone and then grow that plant out and save their own seeds. Not only does it save a lot of money, it's really fun. It's great to be involved in the whole cycle of plant growth, from seed to parent back to seed. And you just learn a lot about the life cycle of plants and the way they interact with the environment around them. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I encourage everybody to try it. Just try it. Try something like some lettuce, just anything. and
Yeah,
have
it
fun
definitely
with it.
does not hurt to try. Even if you are not successful, you lost absolutely nothing. And if you are successful, that's great. You can share those seeds with people. You have a greater connection to that plant, and you save money on buying new seeds.
Yep. So do you guys have a membership program?
Yeah, we at Seed Savers Exchange would not exist unless we had the support of members. And since the organization moved to Decorah, Iowa in the 1980s, we've relied on the support of just interested gardeners and interested folks who want to support our work. And so we do have a membership program, and you can become a member of Seed Savers Exchange for as little as $25. And that $25 is immediately put to work doing all of the preservation work that we do here at the farm. And that $25 you'll receive 4 copies of our member publication. It's a small magazine called the Heritage Farm Companion. You'll receive 10% off of all of your purchases here. You'll know that you're supporting a really unique organization. But I think the best benefit to becoming a member of Seed Savers Exchange is that you have access to the exchange, that original group of seed savers that Diane and Kent started back in 1975. We have an online database where people can share their seeds with each other, and people from about 13 countries and all 50 states of the United States offer seeds through the exchange, and they offer about 26,000 different varieties, both online and through a print publication that's called our yearbook that gets published every year. So if you become a member, you're not only supporting our work, but you get this great benefit of having access to an incredible amount of genetic diversity.
We've been members for decades, and the yearbooks are incredible. What's in there, I just go page after page, and there's so much stuff. And it's like, oh, I want to try this one and this one and this one. And yeah,
it's really, really fun. It's a fantastic resource, and I think the membership fee is worth it just to get the yearbook in the mail. It's this year it is over 700 pages long. 50 of those pages are just, it's kind of like a school yearbook where you have every grower who's growing and offering seeds, they just have a little biography. So mine is in there, and it says, Toby Cain, I live in Decorah, Iowa, and here's my phone number, and here's my email if you want to get in touch with me, and I'm offering these seeds. I'm interested in, growing different kinds of marigolds, and thanks to everybody who gave me seeds last year, and then I give a shout out to my garden friends who I only know through the exchange. So. And after about 50 pages of that, there's 650 pages of plant descriptions, and it's just really amazing the diversity that you'll find within different species. For instance, before I started working at Seed Savers Exchange, I had no idea how many apple varieties there were in North America, and apparently there used to be at least 15,000 different named varieties of apples. This is from our orchard manager, Dan Bussey. He just completed about a decade-long project, and he researched the history of every known apple variety that has been grown in the United States. But we have about 1,000 varieties of apples here at the farm, and our members share many hundreds of apple varieties within the seed exchange, and some of those just have really fantastic histories, and they've been used for special desserts. Some are just for cider. The yearbook is just a great compendium of botanical and cultural knowledge.
So who can join the membership? If I don't have any seeds or I'm not a very good gardener, can I still join?
Sure. Anybody can join Seed Savers Exchange. You don't have to save seeds. You don't even have to have a garden to become a member. Hopefully becoming a member would encourage you to have a garden, would encourage you to save seeds. You certainly do not have to have a garden to become a member. We have international memberships available, and we have family memberships available. You can support us in a lot of different ways, but that original $25 membership is really the best way to support us, and it'll help you stay in touch with Heritage Farm and learn about where your donation is going.
Your work has helped so many of us, and there are many of us who would like to see you continue. So how can anyone listening stay involved with your work?
Gosh, the first thing I would have people do is to subscribe to our newsletter. You don't have to be a member to receive our newsletter. You'll just sign up on our website, include your email address, and we'll send you monthly updates about what's happening on the farm. You can read our stories, and you can just see if you want to become involved. We have a blog on our website, and you can read all about what we're doing at the farm. You can follow us on social media, or you can just give us a call. If you don't have access to the internet, if you're listening to this on the radio or through a friend, just call us and see what's happening at the farm. I would encourage people to also order a catalog. Ordering a catalog is absolutely free, and we'll send it to you through the mail, and you can look through about, 80 or 90 pages of plants. We offer 600 varieties of plants through our catalog, and that'll give you just a little taste of the diversity of plants that are out there for you to explore. The way that the yearbook differs from the catalog is that the yearbook is a member-to-member seed exchange. It's me and you and your uncle and a horticultural society from Massachusetts and some school kids from Maine, all working in their own gardens and all sharing and saving their own seeds from their backyard. And the catalog is kind of a more formal seed ordering process. You know, we grow seeds here at Heritage Farm, and we have other farmers grow seed for us, and then we offer a certain fraction of our collection to anybody in the world. They don't have to be members, and you can just order seeds through us like you would a different seed company. But we were started as a nonprofit organization, so really the catalog part of our work is just to allow us a different way to get diversity out there into the hands of different gardeners, and it also supports all of our nonprofit missions.
Yeah, I love receiving both. The exchange looks more like the wanted ads in the newspaper,
Sure.
where it's just black and white. And then
Definitely.
the catalog is full color, and it's beautiful, and it's sometimes it's like, oh, I need like a quarter pound of this seed, and so I can buy that from the catalog, whereas if I'm just exchanging, I can't always get the amount that I need because we grow about 20,000 square feet, so it takes a lot of seeds to get going.
Yeah, that's a large garden. So the catalog, like you said, just offers you a little bit more freedom in ordering the exact amount you want. It's all coming from one source. It's all coming from Seed Savers Exchange, so you can be sure to get in touch with our customer service department if you have any questions, whereas if you're ordering through the exchange, you're just ordering from different backyard gardeners, and sometimes their communication is slower, or sometimes you have to mail them a letter. They don't even have email. And so it's just two different ways of getting involved in participatory preservation work. And the catalog is so wonderful. I'm planning one of our display gardens here this year, and for the garden, I actually took a copy of the catalog and circled all the varieties that I want to plant, and then I cut out their pictures and put them in the little garden, and put them each in a garden bed. And so I have this really nice, like, full color map of what the garden is going to look like this year. So I have a really, really fantastic job.
Sounds like it. Yeah, lots of fun. That's cool. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be on the show with me today.
It has been really wonderful to talk to you, and hopefully your listeners have enjoyed learning more about Seed Savers Exchange.
For those of you listening, learn more about Seed Savers Exchange by clicking the link below or by visiting seedsavers.org. It was a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure to be here.